I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Brian Wilson.
And joining us right now, Judge Michael Mukasey, former U.S. Attorney General of these United States, back in the days when we had Attorney Generals that actually were the Attorney General of the United States.
As opposed to an Attorney General of whomever happens to be the president,
right.
or the party that holds the office.
Judge Mukasey, it's good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
All right, so let me talk a little bit, if I can, about we wanted to get you here and help us understand this whole big discussion that's going on right now about the 14th Amendment of the Constitution and what it means when it comes to birthright citizenship. Because some people are saying, the anchor babies, maybe if you look very closely at this again, you would find that the 14th Amendment does not apply in cases like that. So what does the 14th Amendment say, and how did it come to be applied to people who were, these anchor babies that were born in America?
Okay. The people, by the way, who say that, I think, have a point. The 14th Amendment says, in relevant part, is all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they shall reside. So the question is, what does "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof" mean? Apparently in 1866, when this thing was still in process, there was a statute passed that began with what later became the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, and it says, that statute, that was passed in 1866, says all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians not taxed, are hereby declared to be citizens of the United States, and not subject to any foreign power. That later developed into the language that was used in the 14th Amendment. But apparently the intent was precisely the same. If that was the intent, then illegal aliens, in fact, aliens of any sort, would not be included within the birthright provisions of the 14th Amendment.
So when people say that maybe the earlier Supreme Court decision in 1898 was overly broad, you agree?
I do.
And
I mean, I think it's being read in an overly broad, it may be read in an overly broad fashion.
So, Judge Mukasey, I'm reading the words of Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan. He actually co-authored the 14th Amendment back in 1866. Brian, you covered him when you were on the Hill, right?
I remember the guy. He was really neat.
And so he said, and I'm quoting him now, "Every person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction is by virtue of natural law and national law a citizen of the United States." Next sentence. "This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers." Setting aside the ambassadors and foreign ministers, what does he mean when he says this will not include persons born in the United States who are foreigners or aliens? It seems like those two statements are contradictory. If you're born in the United States, you're a citizen, but not if you're a foreigner. How can you be both or either?
I think what he means is babies born to foreigners, i.e. people who are not citizens of the United States, do not, by virtue of being born, become citizens, and that's not an unnatural position.
Right.
For example, if an American couple, say, were traveling as tourists over in Belgium, and the wife gave birth to a baby, would anybody really believe that kid was a Belgian citizen?
Right.
No,
not
absolutely
at all.
not. Well, let me ask you, I've heard some people say that there are provisions within the law to have people who come in and, like, they literally come across the border to have a baby so that baby becomes an American citizen and then they have an anchor to stay in this country, that there are provisions in the law to send them back across the border, but we just generally don't do it.
Well, I don't know about that, number one. Number two, if the baby is in fact a citizen, then deporting a U.S. citizen is a problem, whether it's a tiny U.S. citizen or a great big U.S. citizen. And deporting the parents of a baby, but not the baby himself or herself, also raises substantial problems.
So, Judge Mukasey, I've seen some scholars suggest that if Congress passes a law that explains or gives a definition of what the meaning of the 14th Amendment is what the context is, clearly
right.
the context was slavery,
right.
that would be sufficient. But do you agree?
It might. It depends on how it depends on how the Supreme Court would view it. I think it may be that a lawsuit by the government claiming that the interpretation that I just suggested, that is that a baby born to people who are aliens, whether legal aliens or illegal aliens, would not thereby become a citizen, that is now the government's position. The government could sue to try to establish that, I suppose, although I don't think this administration would do that.
But I just really quickly, that would not require what is required to actually amend the Constitution. That's
Correct.
just a simple majority and a
Correct.
president signing. Now, of course, it will be challenged in the courts, but that wouldn't require the okay, great. I just wanted to
that
clear
would start
that
the process,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Right, precisely.
May I indulge you in just a moment to help us out, because we are looking very closely at this Hillary email server story. And those of us who don't really understand the finer workings of the Department of Justice have wondered whether or not this Department of Justice can do a fair and impartial investigation of this matter. Because it seems very clear to us that secrets have been mishandled, and we're wondering, will this Justice Department, will these career people that are said to be investigating, will they be given the leeway to do where they think they should be done, or does politics come to play in this process?
At the risk of seeming naive, I think they will do the job that they are sworn to do. This is being investigated by the National Security Division. That is a relatively recently created division that deals specifically with national security issues. That's the division that puts applications in front of the FISA court for surveillance and so forth. That is the same division that investigated the General Petraeus case. And in fact, according to one account that I read, the lawyers are the same people who handled the General Petraeus case, and I think they will handle this in a professional way. And it has been apolitical throughout. That division has, and I think that I have a lot of faith in them.
Our guest is Michael Mukasey. He was, of course, the U.S. Attorney General back when we had a president who executed a war on terror, and at that time, Judge Mukasey, you were privy to a lot of classified information through your job as Attorney General, especially during the War on Terror. I wonder, when you see classified information, do you have to look to see if there's a marking on it to know that it's classified or top secret, or because of your expertise in understanding what you're looking at, as Attorney General that this is classified information?
Of course you do, and whether as Attorney General or as a Secretary of State, communications generally don't make their way to you unless they are dealing with enormously sensitive matters. That's the nature of your job. And not to understand that, it just frankly blows my mind.
Well, and so if you were the Attorney General, does this seem like sort of an open and shut thing?
Well, I think the question really arises as to what she authorized and what she knew. But as far as whether it was proper or not to keep information like this, that is sensitive information, classified, of whatever classification, on a server outside the government system, that's the same situation as you had with General Petraeus. I mean, it's not a complicated situation.
All right. Well, we'll have to leave it right there. But it doesn't seem to be complicated to me either. I'm just.
It isn't.
To think that you were our Attorney General just 8 years ago, and we have come such a long way and so far down. We could use an Attorney General like you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Great.